They laughed at the humans' shelter, until the sandstorm proved them wrong. Best HFY stories. The desert planet Zifra was a jewel in the Empire's eyes, rich in ore, cursed with weather that shredded metal in hours, and infamous for storms that could strip flesh from bone. The Ralki miners had lived here for decades. They prided themselves on their storm domes, vast, humming shields of energy that held back the endless, grinding sand. To them, their engineering was the apex of survival. Nothing less could endure a Zifran storm. Then the humans came. One, in particular, a mechanic named Darren. He had no dome, no shield generator, no energy field, just a pile of scavenged materials and a stubborn grin. When the first storm season approached, the Ralki mocked him openly. The human hides under stone and would like a burrow rat, one chittered. He builds holes, not defenses, laughed another. When the sands come, he'll be dust on the wind. Darren didn't argue. He only shrugged, hammer in hand, and kept working. His shelter was ugly, a squat mound of layered stone, wood, and some strange paste he brewed from desert plants. It looked primitive, pathetic compared to the glowing domes of the Ralki colonies. Then the sky turned red. The storm came like the breath of a god, winds at 400 kilometers per hour, sand fine as ground glass, lightning hidden in the choking clouds. The Ralki crowded into their domes, secure in their shields, and in the distance, Darren disappeared into his lopsided shelter, closing a heavy stone door behind him. For hours, the storm raged. The Ralki domes shimmered brilliantly, holding back the sand. But then the power grids began to scream. Lightning struck, over and over, draining capacitors, burning out relays. The domes flickered, sand slipped through, abrasive and merciless, walls warped, beams cracked. By the storm's end, 3 domes had collapsed. Hundreds of Ralki were left scrambling in the dunes, their proud shelters nothing more than wreckage. And Darren? When the winds finally died, the human's burrow stood firm, scoured, yes, sand-caked, certainly, but intact. Its layered walls had absorbed the impacts. The strange plant paste had hardened into stone-like mortar, and its sloped shape had guided the worst of the storm harmlessly away. The Ralki survivors stared, their mandibles slack. Darren emerged yawning, brushing dust from his jacket. He looked around at the devastation, then at his intact shelter, then at the wide-eyed aliens. "Storm's over already?" he asked. "Guess I'll make breakfast." The Ralki never laughed at human shelters again. Would you like me to expand this into a longer version with dialogue, technical details, and the Ralki eventually adopting human-style shelters, or keep it as a short punchy tale like this one? Got it. Here's the next part of the story, expanding what happened after the storm. The Ralki elders gathered in the ruins of their collapsed domes, their antennae twitching with unease. Pride was difficult to swallow, but survival demanded it. Elder Croth finally broke the silence. "Human," he rasped, "explain your burrow." Darren had just finished frying something that smelled suspiciously like desert lizard over a small cooker. He raised an eyebrow. "My burrow? That thing?" He pointed lazily at the shelter. "It's not a burrow. It's called a storm bunker, basic survival design back home." The Ralki exchanged glances. But there was no shield field, no power generator, nothing to hold back the sands. Darren smirked. "That's the point. You can't fight the storm. You outlast it. Sand wants to move, let it. You just make sure it doesn't move you." The aliens hissed in disbelief. "But your walls, how did they not collapse?" He tapped the hardened exterior, layered stone, packed sand, and a binder made from desert resin and ash. Flexible, self-healing, same principle we used to build on Earth before energy shielding was even a thing. My ancestors faced hurricanes, tornadoes, and worse. You learn not to argue with the weather. The younger Ralki shifted uneasily, staring at the wreckage of their domes. The domes had cost fortunes, required constant maintenance, and still failed spectacularly. The humans' primitive shelter had cost almost nothing, and endured. Elder Croth clicked his mandibles. "We misjudged." Darren shrugged again, poking at his food. "Yeah, but don't sweat it. Survival's not about looking fancy, it's about not dying. If you want, I'll show you how to build one." The pride of the Ralki cracked that day. For the first time in generations, they accepted instruction from an outsider. Soon, alien claws were hauling stone, mixing resin, and shaping walls under Darren's patient, if sarcastic, guidance. By the time the second storm season came, Ralki bunkers dotted the desert alongside their energy domes. When the storms rolled in, the aliens didn't flee to the glowing shields, they slipped into their low, ugly, human-inspired shelters. And when the storms ended, every bunker still stood. The Ralki had a new word in their language then, Darrenhaven, a shelter that laughs at storms. Want me to take this even further, into a full arc where humans completely change the Ralki culture of survival, maybe even turning them into allies in larger interstellar conflicts? Perfect, let's push the story forward. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 3, Shadows on the Horizon. The war room lights flickered as the holomap updated. Dozens of crimson signals blinked into existence at the edge of the Sol system. Then hundreds, then thousands. The Karth reinforcements had arrived. Each contact pulsed with energy readings dwarfing the earlier fleet. Planet crackers, swarm carriers, annihilation hives, the full weight of a species that had slaughtered empires. The bunker fell silent, every officer staring in horror. Earth was a candle before a storm. God help us, one whispered. Reyes turned toward Captain Ward. Tell me you have a plan. Ward's eyes narrowed, studying the holomap with cold precision. This isn't a battle Earth can win head-on. Not yet, but the Karth have made a mistake. He tapped a point in the projection, their fleet's rear line. They're overconfident. They think humanity's broken. They've exposed their supply vessels and comm relays. Take those out. The swarm loses coordination. The bigger the beast, the harder it falls when you cut the nerves. Reyes frowned. That would mean striking into their formation. We don't have the ships. Ward's crew exchanged knowing glances. Then one of them, a woman with half her face marked by silver lattice, stepped forward. You have us, she said. Her voice was metallic, layered, like two people speaking in unison. The Nightborn was not idle in exile. She carries weapons Earth has never dreamed of. On cue, the holomap shifted, displaying the Dreadnought's full arsenal. Planet shear cannons, void torpedoes that bent space around their targets. Swarms of drones like living shadows. Humanity's lost ship was no longer just a dreadnought. It was a weapon forged in a nightmare crucible. Reyes leaned in, voice hard. If we commit you to this, you're not coming back. Ward allowed himself a thin smile. Admiral, we didn't come back to live. We came back to finish the fight. Far above, the Nightborn powered its engines. The ship trembled as systems came online, alien energies bleeding into human designs. Across Earth, civilians looked up at the sky, watching the black silhouette rise like an avenging phantom. Children pointed, soldiers saluted, survivors whispered prayers. Because for the first time in days, there was hope. And when the Nightborn ignited its spinal cannon, preparing to dive into the Karth Armada alone, a single message broadcast across all human channels. Humanity does not kneel, not today, not ever. Would you like the next chapter to dive into the Nightborn's assault against the Karth Armada, a big space battle, HFY style, or peel back the mystery of what the ship encountered beyond known space that gave it these impossible weapons? Alright, let's go full HFY space battle. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 4, The Spear in the Dark. The Nightborn surged into the void like a predator unleashed. Its engines burned with a blue so deep it seemed to devour the stars themselves. The Karth noticed immediately. Thousands of ships shifted, their formations tightening, weapons pivoting. A tide of annihilation turned toward one single vessel. Contact in 60 seconds, Ward's helmsman reported, voice steady despite the swarm ahead. Ward stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. Load void torpedoes. Target their command relays. Aye, Captain. The first Karth volley hit, a storm of plasma and antimatter, enough to erase fleets. But the Nightborn did not fall. Her hull shimmered, bending reality itself. Shots that should have struck vanished into nothingness, swallowed whole by distortions that rippled across the blackened plating. Return fire, Ward ordered. The void torpedoes launched, vanishing into folds of space. A heartbeat later, explosions blossomed inside Karth cruisers. tearing them apart from within. The alien fleet recoiled in shock as their rear line buckled. Then the spinal cannon fired. A beam of impossible energy cut across kilometers, slicing through battleships like tissue. The blast left behind a wound in space itself, a scar that twisted light and dragged wreckage into its depths. The crew did not cheer. They moved like machines, efficient and ruthless. Every strike was calculated, every maneuver honed by centuries of survival beyond charted stars. The Karth responded with fury. Warforms swarmed, chittering masses of bioships flooding forward. They latched onto the Nightborne's hull, clawing, tearing. "Deploy the swarm," Ward said calmly. From hidden bays, the Nightborne unleashed her own brood. Drones poured out like shadows, razor-winged constructs of alien alloy and human design. They shredded through the attackers, dismembering living ships with surgical precision. On Earth, civilians watched the battle play out across intercepted feeds. They saw their lost ship carving a path through an armada that had crushed entire civilizations. They saw the impossible and believed. For the first time in history, the Karth faltered. But Ward knew the truth. This was not victory. This was only the opening strike. He leaned over the tactical map, eyes fixed on the burning swarm ahead. "Bring us deeper," he ordered, "right into the heart of them. If the Karth want humanity broken, let them choke on our defiance." The Nightborne plunged forward, one ship against a galaxy of monsters. And the galaxy blinked. Do you want me to make the next chapter the turning point where the Nightborne uncovers the true enemy behind the Karth? Or should we stay in the moment and ride along? Detailed battle sequence of the Dreadnought tearing its way through the fleet? Alright, here's the epilogue scene, setting up a perfect HFY sequel hook. Epilogue, the warning. The debrief room was empty except for the human and Commander Vralik. The walls pulsed faintly with the containment field, but the commander hadn't activated it. Not yet. "You're free to go," Vralik said, tail swaying slowly. "But you should hear this before you walk out that door." The human leaned back in the chair, one eyebrow raised. "Sounds ominous." "It is." The commander placed a datapad on the table and slid it forward. The screen displayed grainy stills from the market incident, the human mid-strike, mid-dodge, mid-protective block. Every frame radiated lethal intent. "These images are already circulating in closed military networks," Vralik said. "You've demonstrated a capability that many will covet or fear." The human glanced at the screen and shrugged. "I just did my job." "That's the problem," Vralik said, voice low. "To you, that was nothing. To them, that was a weapon they can't buy, can't replicate, can't predict. And every intelligence agency in 3 sectors is about to add you to their watch lists." The human was silent for a moment, then asked, "And you? What list do you put me on?" Vralik's frill rippled, the Drakari equivalent of a sigh. "That depends on who you decide you protect next. Remember, human, the line between guardian and threat is thin. The galaxy will watch which side you stand on." The humans stood, slinging their satchel over one shoulder. "If they're smart," they said, "they'll hope I'm on their side." They left without looking back. Vralik sat alone in the hum of the room, staring at the still images. He'd seen warriors, assassins, and soldiers before, but never one who moved like that. It wasn't training alone, it was instinct. And instincts can't be unlearned. "If you want, I can make the next story where an alien faction tries to recruit or abduct the human after this warning, and the situation spirals into a full HFY political thriller meets combat story. That's where things could get very intense." "All right, Here's the sequel opening where the warning proves true and factions make their move. Part 1, The Offer. The human had been back at the Institute for less than a week before the first accident happened. It was late evening. The corridors empty except for the faint hum of cleaning drones. They were heading back from the gym when a shadow stepped into the path ahead, tall, broad, wrapped in a cloak that shimmered faintly in the low light. "Hunter," the figure said, voice smooth but carrying a strange weight. The humans slowed, one hand resting casually in their pocket, the other free at their side. "That's not my name." "It's what you are," the figure replied, "and that's why I'm here. My employers have taken an interest in you." The human kept walking, forcing the cloaked one to match their pace. "Let me guess, they saw the market footage." "Of course. 3 armed hostiles down in under 20 seconds. Blindfolded prey location in training exercises. Protective prioritization under fire. You're wasted in a classroom." They stopped at an intersection, glancing down each hall. Empty. No cameras in this section. The human didn't like that. "Let me guess," they said. "You want to hire me." "To protect," the figure said, smiling faintly, "or to remove. The pay is the same, depending on the target." The human's eyes narrowed just enough to show they understood exactly what was being offered. "I don't do removals." The smile widened. "Everyone says that, in the beginning." Something in the tone set alarms ringing in the human's instincts. Not a threat yet, but the smell of one just upwind. They stepped closer, lowering their voice. "You've got 5 seconds to walk away before I decide you're testing me." The cloaked figure didn't move at first, then gave a slow, almost mocking bow. "Very well, but others will come, Hunter, and not all will offer credits before they take what they want." The figure stepped back, vanishing into the corridor's dim corners. The human stayed still for a moment, listening. The air currents shifted, the faint echo of footsteps fading. "They already circling," the human thought. And somewhere deep inside, an old survival instinct stirred. They weren't prey. They weren't predator. They were both, and the hunt was about to start again. If you want, I can continue straight into part 2, where the first abduction attempt happens, giving the human a chance to show exactly why taking them alive is a terrible idea. Would you like me to roll into that next? Alright, here's the seamless, polished HFY short story version, combining all the chapters you've asked me to build into one flowing narrative. They laughed at the humans' shelter, until the sandstorm proved them wrong. The desert planet Zifra was a graveyard of empires. Its storms were infamous, winds at 400 kilometers an hour, lightning hidden in choking clouds, sand fine as razors. The Ralki miners who lived there prided themselves on their storm domes, vast shimmering shields of energy that kept the storms at bay. To them, nothing less could survive on Zifra. Then the humans arrived. One of them, a mechanic named Darren, built his own shelter out of scavenged stone, wood, and resin brewed from desert plants. It was low, ugly, and primitive compared to the glowing domes of the Ralki. The miners mocked him openly. "He builds holes like a burrow rat. That pile of rock won't last a gust. When the storm comes, he'll be dust." Darren only shrugged and kept working. When the sky turned red and the first storm hit, the Ralki crowded into their domes while Darren vanished into his crude bunker. The storm raged for hours. The domes flickered as lightning drained their grids, sand scoured their walls, and supports collapsed under the strain. By dawn, 3 domes had fallen. Hundreds of Ralki were left scrambling in the dunes, their pride reduced to wreckage. And Darren? His bunker stood, battered but intact. He emerged yawning, brushing sand from his jacket. "Storm's over already?" he asked. "Guess I'll make breakfast." The Ralki never laughed at human shelters again. Under Darren's sarcastic guidance, the aliens learned to build bunkers of their own. They carved symbols into the stone, reinforced them with resin, and turned them into communal sanctuaries. Storm after storm came, and the bunkers endured. The word Darrenhaven entered their language. At first it meant a storm shelter. Soon it meant safety. Then it meant resilience itself. And when the Coron syndics raided during storm season, expecting easy prey, they found something new: Ralki warriors waiting in underground barracks, their bunkers unshaken. The raiders were routed, and the name Darrenhaven spread across the stars. In time, whole species adopted the design. Bunkers appeared on volcanic worlds, frozen moons, and acid rain planets. Colonies once thought impossible began to thrive. The principle was always the same: don't fight nature head-on. Endure it, outlast it, survive. Where the Empire had ruled by supplying fragile dome shields, its grip began to weaken. Worlds grew self-reliant, and everywhere, the same truth was whispered: humanity taught us this. At the Galactic Concord, Elder Croth of the Ralki addressed 50 species. Darren stood behind him, older but still smirking. Once, Croth said, we thought humans foolish. We built shining domes while they built crude holes. The storms proved us wrong. And since then, storm after storm has proved the same. Humans do not defy the universe. They endure it. And in enduring, they teach the rest of us to thrive. Applause shook the hall, alien voices thundering in unison. From that day, Darrenhaven became more than a word, it became a doctrine. Centuries passed. The first shelter on Zifra still stood, weathered but unbroken, preserved in resin and reverence. Pilgrims touched its stone walls and whispered the vow: we endure. Civilizations rose and fell, wars scarred the stars, but wherever chaos raged, the same squat, ugly shelters stood, symbols of endurance, carrying the quiet legacy of one stubborn human who refused to die in a sandstorm. His name faded into legend, but the galaxy remembered what he taught. Storms pass, empires fall, but those who endure will outlast them all. And across the stars, one word echoed through the ages: Darrenhaven. High voltage done. This is the final polished version, ready to share as a full HFY short story. Do you want me to now craft you a Reddit-style intro and outro post format, title, teaser, and closing note, so it feels like a real /r/HFY submission? Got it. Here's the Reddit-style HFY post format for your story, complete with intro, teaser, and outro so it feels like an authentic /r/HFY submission. Title: They laughed at the humans' shelter until the sandstorm proved them wrong. HFY, one shot. Teaser/intro: The Ralki miners had lived on Zifra for generations, surviving only under massive storm domes powered by fragile shield grids. To them, their technology was the pinnacle of survival, until one human mechanic named Darren decided he didn't need a dome at all. They mocked him for building an ugly burrow. They laughed at his primitive bunker. But when the first storm season came, the storm proved him right. Story: Insert the polished story here, the seamless version I just gave you. Closing note/author's comment: Sometimes HFY isn't about conquering galaxies or wielding superweapons. It's about humanity's quiet, stubborn refusal to die. I wanted to write a story where survival skills, not firepower, are what win respect and reshape civilizations. After all, the universe doesn't care how shiny your technology is. The storm always comes. And humanity endures. Backhand index pointing right. Do you want me to also make a shorter punchy version of the story, like 1,000 words max, so it fits well for Reddit scrolling readers who like compact HFY tales? Alright, here's the short, punchy Reddit-ready HFY version, about 1K words vibe, that keeps the impact sharp for scrolling readers. They laughed at the humans' shelter until the sandstorm proved them wrong. The desert planet Zifra was famous for storms that could strip paint from steel and flesh from bone. The Ralki miners survived only by hiding under vast storm domes, shielded fortresses of humming energy. When the humans arrived, one mechanic named Darren didn't bother with domes. He built a squat stone and resin shelter, ugly and low to the ground. The Ralki mocked him. He digs like a burrow rat. That pile of rock will collapse in minutes. When the sands come, he'll be dust. Darren only shrugged and kept working. When the first storm season hit, the Ralki crowded into their domes while Darren sealed himself inside his bunker. The storm howled. Lightning fried circuits. Sand scoured walls. 3 domes collapsed. Hundreds of Ralki were left clawing for cover. Darren's shelter? Still standing. He emerged yawning. Storm's over already? Guess I'll make breakfast. The Ralki never laughed again. They begged him to teach them. Soon, low stone bunkers dotted the desert beside the domes. When raiders attacked during the next storm, expecting helpless miners, they found Ralki warriors waiting in underground barracks. The attackers didn't last an hour. The word Darren Haven spread, first meaning a shelter, then survival itself. Colonies on volcanic worlds, frozen moons, and acid planets copied the design. The lesson was always the same. Don't fight nature. Endure it. Outlast it. And everywhere the whisper followed, humanity taught us this. Centuries later, the first shelter still stood on Zifra. Pilgrims of 100 species touched its rough walls and repeated the vow, we endure. Civilizations rose and fell. Wars scarred the stars, but the bunkers stood. A legacy of one stubborn human who refused to die in a sandstorm. His name faded, but the word remained, Darren Haven. High voltage, that's the compact scroll-friendly version. Would you like me to also create a title plus thumbnail style one-line hook, like a YouTube best HFY story post, to pair with this short version? Perfect, here's the YouTube/thumbnail style hook package for your story. The kind of snappy one-liners and subtitles that grab attention for best HFY stories videos or posts. Main title, big, bold, backhand index pointing right. They laughed at the humans' shelter, until the sandstorm proved them wrong. Subtitle/teaser line, Milky Way. The storm crushed alien tech, but the human bunker still stood. Alternate hooks, for thumbnail/caption. The dome fell. The human didn't. Aliens mocked his shelter. Then came the storm. Primitive, or smarter than all of us? When the sand cleared, only the human survived. Closing tagline, for outro/voiceover. High voltage empires rise. Storms rage, but humanity endures. Do you want me to now make you a set of 3 to 4 variations of this story's title, SEO friendly, Reddit/YouTube style, so you can pick the strongest one for posting? Here we go, a set of fresh SEO-friendly title variations for your story, works for Reddit, YouTube, or best HFY stories compilations. 1. Aliens mocked the humans' shelter, but the storm showed who was right. HFY. 2. They said his bunker was primitive, then the sandstorm shattered their domes. 3. The dome failed, the human shelter didn't. Best HFY survival story. 4. Aliens laughed at the humans' burrow, until the desert proved them wrong. 5. When the sand cleared, only the human shelter still stood. HFY sci-fi. 6. The storm crushed alien technology, but humanity's stone bunker endured. High voltage. Would you like me to also create a super short clickbait style title, 10 words max, for thumbnail text? Something punchy like human shelter versus alien dome. Guess who won? Got it? Thumbs up. Here are super short, punchy clickbait style titles, perfect for thumbnails, under 10 words. 1. Human shelter versus alien dome. Guess who won? 2. They laughed at his bunker, big mistake. 3. Alien domes fell, human shelter stood. 4. Storm tested them all, only the humans survived. 5. Primitive shelter, or galaxy-changing idea? 6. The storm came. The human endured. 7. Aliens mocked him. The desert proved him right. High voltage. Do you want me to make you a series banner-style tagline too, like a repeating lined best HFY stories, humanity endures, that you can stamp across multiple posts? Alright, let's go big with a longer, cinematic banner-style tagline series you can reuse for HFY posts, thumbnails, or even a compilation channel. These are meant to feel like epic taglines that tie multiple HFY stories together under one theme. Series banner-style taglines, long form. 1. Across the stars. Empires rise and fall, but whenever the storm comes, one truth remains, humanity endures. 2. They called us fragile, primitive, reckless, yet when the galaxy's finest faltered, it was the stubborn human who stood firm. 3. In the face of storms, in the shadow of war, in the silence of forgotten worlds, there is always a human who refuses to break. 4. Aliens laugh, enemies scoff, nature itself rages, but humanity has one weapon no empire can match, the will to outlast. 5. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced, and yet, time and again, the galaxy learns the same lesson: humanity survives. 6. The story is old, yet always new. When others yield, humanity digs in, and what they build lasts forever. 7. From one shelter in a desert storm to the halls of galactic power, every world now knows the word, Darenhaven. High Voltage, would you like me to now compile all your Darenhaven saga parts into one flowing, novel-style story with sections/chapters, so it reads like a complete HFY short novella? Perfect, let's build the full-flowing HFY novella-style version of the Darenhaven saga. I'll structure it in sections/chapters so it reads like one complete story instead of scattered parts. The Darenhaven Saga. Chapter 1, The Desert Laughs. Zifra was a death world in disguise. Its skies were blue, its sands golden, but when the storms came, they stripped steel to powder and flesh to bone. The Ralki miners had survived here for generations, hiding under vast shimmering domes of energy. They believed their domes the pinnacle of survival. Nothing else could endure Zifra. Then came the humans. 1. A mechanic named Darren refused the domes. Instead, he built a squat, ugly mound of stone, wood, and resin paste. It looked primitive beside the Ralki's glowing shields. They laughed at him. He builds holes like burrow vermin. That pile of rock will crumble in minutes. When the sands come, he'll be dust. Darren didn't argue. He hammered another stone into place. When the first storm season came, the Ralki huddled in their domes. Darren sealed himself inside his crude bunker. The storm raged with winds at 400 kilometers per hour. Lightning struck until power grids screamed. 3 domes collapsed. Hundreds of Ralki were left exposed. And Darren? His bunker endured. When the winds died, he emerged yawning. "Storm's over already?" he muttered. "Guess I'll make breakfast." The laughter never returned. Chapter 2, The First Haven. Shame was bitter, but survival left no room for pride. Elder Croth approached Darren after the storm. "Human," he rasped, "show us your burrow." "It's called a bunker," Darren said. "Layered stone, packed sand, resin binder. The storm wants to move, let it. Just make sure it doesn't move you." The Ralki learned. They built their own bunkers, crude at first, then refined. They painted clan marks on stone, dug communal chambers, turned survival into culture. When the next storm came, the bunkers held. The word Darenhaven entered their tongue, at first meaning shelter, then safety, then resilience itself. And when the Koron syndics raided during storm season, they expected helpless miners. Instead they found Ralki warriors in fortified tunnels, armed and ready. The raiders did not last an hour. Darenhaven had become more than shelter, it was defense. Chapter 3, The Whisper Spreads. Word traveled fast across the stars. Colonies on volcanic worlds carved bunkers into basalt. Frozen moons used ice reinforced with resin. Acid rain planets coated stone with neutralizing compounds. The principle was always the same: don't fight nature, endure it, outlast it, survive. And everywhere the whisper followed, humanity taught us this. The Empire's grip weakened, its monopoly on fragile domes collapsed, worlds grew self-reliant, productivity soared, and always, humanity's quiet designs lay at the heart of it. Chapter 4, The Concord. At the first galactic Concord, Elder Croft stood before 50 worlds. Darren, older now, smirked from the sidelines. "Once," Croft declared, "we thought humans foolish. We built shining domes while they built crude holes. The storms proved us wrong. And storm after storm has taught the same: humans do not defy the universe, they endure it, and in enduring, they teach the rest of us to thrive." Applause thundered through the chamber. From that day, Darenhaven became doctrine, military, economic, cultural, and humanity, once dismissed as backwater primitives, became the quiet architects of survival. Chapter 5, The Legacy. Centuries passed. Civilizations rose and fell. Wars scarred the stars. Yet the first shelter still stood on Zifra, weathered but unbroken. Pilgrims of 100 species touched its rough walls and whispered the vow, "We endure." On banners of the Concord, no crown or sword appeared, only the stylized image of a bunker, sloped walls and heavy door. Darren's name faded into legend. Some called him the first builder. Others said he was chosen by the desert itself. But all agreed on the truth he left behind. Storms pass, empires fall. Those who endure outlast them all. And across the stars, the word that survived millennia still echoed. Darren Haven. High Voltage. There's your novella-style complete version, polished, chaptered, and flowing like a full HFY tale. Would you like me to now expand this into a 20K plus word long form story, with detailed dialogue, culture building, and side characters, basically turning Darren Haven's saga into a short novel?